Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, by the way, one of the tough things about doing Washington Gun Law is that I so frequently have to disseminate and spread really bad news. In fact, not only is it bad news, it's oftentimes rather infuriating news because it's the story of some local politician of some lower court, which has essentially thumbed their nose at the United States Supreme Court or wiped their ass with the United States Constitution. Now, we've been living through an incredibly tumultuous time following the holdings of New York Pistol and Rifle Association v. Bruin, where many of these very blue states have decided to essentially say, oh yeah, watch this, we can pass even more unconstitutional gun law. My state, of course, being one of them. Now, we are heading in to the 2024 presidential election season, which means all of these issues, such as what some people call gun control, I call civilian disarmament, are going to begin to bubble back up to the surface. And what you all really need heading into the election season is some really, really good news. Well, I think I may actually have it. In fact, I think this is some of the best news that you're going to hear in a long, long time. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about the best Second Amendment news you're going to hear all week. Okay, so the story we're talking about today actually comes from a fantastic website that you all should be following called The Truth About Guns. Larry Keane is the author of this article, and here is the fantastic news I have for everybody. You ready? Here we go. Heading in to the 2024 presidential election season, President Joe Biden has selected Vice President Kamala Harris to be the point person on gun control in the United States. Let us all celebrate. Now, I know that many of you are thinking I am being quite cynical, and I'm not really being cynical as much as I am, in fact, being sarcastic. Because when we go back and we take a look at the data, the history, the performance record on Vice President Harris, we will know that there has probably never been a politician in the United States that has been more in over their head than our current Vice President. Now, understand that as furious as many of us are in the 2A community about the way our rights have been trampled over the last year, those on the side of civilian disarmament, they're quite upset with the Biden administration as well. You see, they believe that the Biden administration has not done enough yet because most of you lawful, responsible Americans are still armed. And the ultimate goal of this group and of this movement is complete and absolute civilian disarmament. And as a matter of fact, we are beginning to see now that the silent part is actually being spoken quite loudly and proudly, even so much as to have the governor of America's biggest state now proposing a constitutional amendment to eviscerate a Bill of Rights. Now, if you think that my sarcasm is not without some data points to support it, I went back and took a look at a little puff piece from Newsweek magazine. It was kind of in defense of Vice President Harris about 6 months ago, and it was talking about, yes, she had had some very difficult times, had been stumbling, but as they pointed out, this was not uncommon for vice presidents to struggle to come out from under the shadow of such an amazing leader like President Joe Biden. They outlined 3 issues that Kamala Harris has been the point person on. So let's take a look at those issues, understand what her political agenda would have been and how successful she's been. The first one, of course, is abortion rights. Now, we're not going to touch that issue here at Washington Gun Law with a 10-foot pole, other than to say that during the time that she's been vice president, the Dobbs decision did come out, which significantly altered the landscape of that particular issue from a constitutional standpoint. And we have seen many, many states advancing the rights of the unborn based upon that holding. So, if you are on the political left, and Kamala Harris was your point person on abortion rights, and you are truly a pro-abortion, pro-choice person, what letter grade do you give her? Okay, the second issue that she was point person on was voting rights, okay? Because apparently we are still suppressing votes all throughout the United States. And the big piece of legislation was the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Okay, and so President Biden put Vice President Harris in charge of that. We are going to advance that piece of legislation Oh, until it hit the brick wall of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Now, one would think with someone's political clout, such as Vice President Kamala Harris, that she was able to broker a deal and, in fact, get that Voting Rights Act passed. No, you have not really ever heard of that act because it is nothing more than a bill. It has never become a piece of legislation. So what letter grade do you give her there? And of course, the third issue, and the one that she is perhaps most well known for being the point person on, is to help secure and solve the problems at our southern border. And I'm not going to touch that issue with a 10-foot pole, but I think that everybody is abundantly aware of what a complete, unadulterated disaster and humanitarian crisis exists on our southern border, and the fact that President Biden and Vice President Harris have done nothing more than to exasperate that problem. And of course, the president taps out the vice president to do this at a time when not only is the United States selling on average well over 1 million firearms per month, but the fastest growing demographic groups of first-time gun buyers are women, minority, and those in the LGBTQ communities. Now, what we're probably going to get here is much of the same old, same old. They're going to use the same old talking points. Firearms are the #1 killer of young people. Weapons of war do not belong in our streets. If you need more than 10 rounds, you probably shouldn't have a gun anyways. Why does anybody actually need an AR-15? We will get all of those talking points, but here's the one thing that we're not going to get. We're not going to get any legislative action. In fact, if you really, really wanted a political issue, a political movement to die on the vine or to absolutely accomplish nothing, then the best move is to probably appoint Vice President Kamala Harris as the point person on it. Listen, you may have more questions about this or anything else which is related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights. You guys should know how to contact Washington Gun Law by now, but if you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. In the meantime, I do want all of you to remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.